Hey folks, Dave Neal here with a special bonus Easter weekend episode of the Rush Hour podcast covering Blake Lively on an all-out spiral on Good Friday. Now listen, we're all adults here, but boy, candy's not the only thing you get in the Easter basket. We're talking about the biggest pop culture story, maybe of all time, definitely this decade. And now we're hearing directly from Blake Lively as she cherry picks sections of the court's ruling to defend why it's a good thing that 10 of the 13 claims she has made have been dismissed by the judge. I know, it's a lot to get into. We've got what Blake is saying. Some people are calling it crashing out. Some people are calling it narcissistic, that she feels the need to control this story while Justin Baldoni maintains an air of being unaffected by all of this as he continues to surf with his 8-pack abs and his happy family. Either way, it's fascinating that we're seeing not just quotes from the lawyers, which we will share, but what's coming out of Blake's mouth on her Instagram stories. And the crash out is real. So we're going to get into it. And as I am making this episode, there's actually new slides to get to. So we're going to try to, cover all of it. And I'll read some of your comments, what you have to say. If you enjoyed this bonus content, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe. Half of the audience, literally half of the million views a month that we get are from people that are unsubscribed. What are you waiting for already? Come on. And by the way, I did say that I would be attending the scheduled trial, and I still am planning on doing that. I've read some of the comments. Maybe I don't know what I said about there's a possibility I might be leaving the country. It's a whole thing, but I plan on being at the trial if I am able to. And I mean that, like, I truly am, looking at getting rentals for the month and things like that. So if it even goes to trial, but that's the plan. That's the plan. We're sticking to it. All right. How about this? Here is, because you guys deserve to have me there live streaming from the courthouse. You deserve that. And I'll have to get whatever technology or T-Mobile sponsors to, pipe in the Starlink, whatever we can do to get that in 5G, we'll try. But here's what we're hearing from Blake's agency. In an industry that too often asks women to absorb the damage and stay quiet, Blake Lively chose to stand up for herself, her castmates, and those without the ability to fight back. A spokesperson for the Richard Weitz and Christian Murhead run talent agency told Deadline this Good Friday. She has met this moment with courage, moral clarity, and extraordinary determination. Now, my question that I would ask if they were taking questions, hi, yes, Dave Neal with the Rush Hour podcast, is how much courage did it take for Blake Lively to allow the New York Times to spend 3-4 months developing a story to end Baldoni's career without giving him a proper chance to respond, right? They gave him like 20 minutes notice before they ran the story. How much moral courage did it involve when Blake Lively created a sham subpoena? Right? Blake Lively is the one who created a fake court case against 10 Jane and John Does in order to create a trial, file, and in doing so, subpoena for records and then dismiss the case. Is that moral courage? Moral clarity? Is that extraordinary? It certainly is extraordinary determination. I'll give Blake that. She gets an A+ as far as spending a lot of money to get people to try to fight her battles for her. But I don't know how much extraordinary determination goes into, leveraging your celebrity connections in order to cancel a guy. All for claims that the judge are now saying don't exist. There is no harassment. The judge has said there is no harassment. Now, there are still claims that Blake Lively made that will go to the next steps of trial, right? Those claims can be retaliation. But what exactly would Baldoni be retaliating against Blake Lively to? Or why would he be retaliating to her if there was no harassment in the first place? Like, in what world would Justin Baldoni, a man who doesn't have nearly the star power as Blake Lively, in what world would he be trying to mess with his lead actress in the days, weeks, and months leading up to the release of the biggest movie he's ever made? His big directorial debut. Yeah, that's a smart idea. Let's put all of our money, equity, blood, sweat, and tears into making a movie. And then let's smear the lead actress so that the movie fails at the box office. What are we talking about? Here's what Brian Friedman had to say in a statement to TMZ. This is Justin Baldoni's attorney. Since the first day of this case, when Justin and the other defendants were blindsided by these allegations, the legal team on the ground from the beginning have worked extremely long days and nights defending this case through transparency, by releasing the actual truthful text messages, and by welcoming and facilitating the release of all documents exhibiting the truth. He didn't end there. The defendants were not afraid of the truth. The plan was not only to speak the truth, but to also show the same truth over and over again through the presentation of actual evidence. Neither Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, nor any of the other defendants have engaged in the harassment of Blake Lively. Despite our clients being accused of DARVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender, in defending these claims, and despite our client being referred to in writing as a predator, what I said on behalf of our clients day one and every day since then is true. Our clients are very good people who have not engaged in this harassment as alleged. As such, they have deserved a vigorous defense, which was led through transparency. It is gratifying to see that the court's ruling confirms what the legal team believed from day one. Powerful words. Now, I have made my stance clear, which is, with all the information I've seen, I tend to believe Justin Baldoni more than Blake Lively at this point. I've maintained that I would stay open if new information comes out, but the judge is essentially saying, as far as the harassment goes, I've seen everything I need to see. I'm calling the fight, right? In a boxing match, it doesn't always the fight doesn't always end when the guy gets knocked out and he's on the ground. It doesn't always end when it goes to how many ever rounds they agreed upon. Sometimes the judge in the ring can call the fight. And right now, the judge in the sort of metaphorical ring here has said, I've seen enough. Blake Lively does not have the evidence that reaches the threshold that Baldoni did harassment onto her, right? Early on, people have made the spin saying, well, but the judge is basically saying that, that it's out on a technicality. And then the judge is saying, no, these are the reasons why what she is claiming doesn't live up to the merits of those claims. And you have to, this is why you have to have like a very, by the books legal system, because it's one thing to just say someone harassed you, but it's another to look at every single piece of evidence, overturn every stone, and at that point go, nah, not really. Now, as far as the retaliation claims, we'll have to see. But I mean, just because the judge is allowing it to go to trial doesn't mean that she's going to be found, that he's going to be found guilty or anything. So, literally every thread that I'm seeing about this is calling it like as this, Blake Lively crashing out. I think I had Without a Crystal Ball on one of these. Let's see if I got here. Yeah, Blake Lively has officially lost her mind with her statement following her massive loss. And since this is Without a Crystal Ball, never afraid to share her opinions. Since then, we've got actually more messages from Blake. So we're going to get into those right now. This is what Blake has posted. Some of these I'm pulling from Reddit because it's been over 24 hours. And then some are more recent from last night. And I don't know what sort of Photoshop she used or had a publicist write this, who knows, from the court's ruling. And again, these quotes, just like her initial quotes that she gave to the New York Times, are cherry-picked. I'll provide some response to these quotes. There also is some direct evidence that the plan to destroy Lively and her career was put into action. In addition to boosting videos of himself, a jury could find that these efforts were proactive and in line with Baldoni's desire to feel like Lively can be buried. So again, the question about whether Lively can be buried, this is a metaphorical question. They mean bury her character, right? Bury her so deep that she'll never work again. If Blake Lively did create a harassment scandal out of nowhere in order to sink Baldoni, and Baldoni's response is, I want to bury her. Is he a bad guy? Is he a bad guy for returning the level of energy she was putting onto him to end his career? That's the real question, right? So this idea of whether Blake Lively can be buried, it's like, well, you're not just rolling the dice and saying, well, let's find some random actor and let's bury them. Let's just destroy them for no reason. Are they destroying Blake Lively with her own words? And if so, can you really fault them for boosting and elevating her own words, calling out that she got married at a plantation or whatever, all these things that, wouldn't normally matter as far as whether or not Baldoni harassed her. But if they're trying to go tit for tat, if she's trying to come for him and he's like saying, well, what about, you got married at this plantation? What about these things you said in the past? Or what about you marketing your florals or marketing your alcohol line? Like if they want to kind of hold up a mirror, that's what burying someone is, right? Is holding up a mirror and showing them their own bad actions. Is a jury really going to find them, guilty? A person in her position could have understood the workplace to at times reflect a gendered and sexualized view of women in a disregard for their privacy sufficient to make it reasonable to complain about a hostile work environment based on sex or gender. Again, that has nothing to do with whether or not there was a hostile work environment. Judge is just saying, it's a claim that she could make. Lively has come forward with affirmative evidence supporting her claim, both with respect to the Wayfair parties following through on their intent to spread negative content about her and with respect to Wallace's technological capabilities in doing so. Again, I see that as just shining a mirror of what she has said. Like, what negative content? Is there negative content about Blake Lively online based on her own actions, going viral for being rude to Kirsty Flaw? That's not like, who cares? If they boost the content, if she was guilty of saying or doing these things, so be it. And what is the level of retaliation? Are you supposed to just be quiet and let someone, are we fighting with our hands tied behind our backs? Mike Gottlieb, attorney for Blake Lively, said this: "It is completely unsurprising." And again, this was shared by Blake Lively. "It is completely unsurprising that Brian Friedman does not understand the court's actual ruling. He didn't even argue the summary judgment motion he's now spinning, had to bring in another law firm for the trial, and just last week was reprimanded by the court for having filed legally frivolous claims." All right, he was slapped on the wrist. Wasn't sanctioned to have to pay any money. What the court actually decided yesterday is that Blake Lively provided evidence to go to trial on her core claims, that she spoke out against what she believed was harassment on the set. Do you hear that? She spoke out against what she believed. Even the lawyers are trying to stay clear. They're like, oh, Blake Lively believed it. We're not saying we do. And suffered retaliation that harmed her reputation as a result. The court held in painstaking detail that Miss Lively provided sufficient evidence of all the following. She privately spoke up about negotiated changes to on-set behavior by Baldoni Heath that she and others found disturbing. And again, that was like the 17-point claim or however many points it was, which they kind of felt like they were coerced into signing to get her back on the set. She reasonably believed in good faith that the behavior she privately raised concerned about was unlawful harassment. Baldoni Heath and Wayfair Studios understood that her claims amounted to harassment allegations, and in response, they crossed the line and took steps that harmed her reputation and career. Because of yesterday's decision, all of those claims will be heard by the jury. And here's what the court actually said about Miss Lively's harassment claims. A person in her position could have understood the workplace to at times reflect a gendered and sexualized view. We covered that. The court's ruling that Miss Lively's state and federal harassment claims could not go to trial was about legal issues rather than an endorsement of the defendant's conduct. The court held that Miss Lively's harassment claims could not go to a jury because Miss Lively did not sign a contract, that she is an independent contractor instead of an employee, and that the offensive conduct occurred in New Jersey instead of California. The fact that Brian Friedman is claiming exoneration based on legal technicalities while facing trial next month tells you everything you need to know. Does it? The retaliation Miss Lively faced for privately speaking up for a safe work environment has always been the beating heart of her case. It is why she filed her lawsuit. The court found ample evidence to move her case forward. We look forward to trial May 18th. All right, I guess we're going to New York, May 18th, right around the corner. We'll see you guys there. Should we book some stand-up shows while we're in town? I think so. I think my plan is going to be this. I think I'm going to do my normal morning and afternoon episodes. And I think I'm also going to live stream on YouTube from the courthouse at like 5 p.m. every day or whatever time they normally get out of court. I'm just going to have to find some technology, and maybe I could hire somebody. I don't even know how we're going to do this, but I would really love to have somebody running camera so I can be on camera with a microphone. And obviously we're not going to get any commentary from the lawyers. I don't think so. But if there's other content creators that are there, we'll try to, hear what they have to say. Or if there's anyone that was in the courtroom, we'll get summaries and all of that. So that's the plan. So hit the subscribe button. We're going to have, again, we'll have to see if we can get good Wi-Fi downtown New York. It sounds like a nightmare to me. So Blake Lively shared the statement right there. And then Blake Lively said this, and this is wild because she actually included the dragon emoji here. So I've got what Blake had to say. There's so much more to get into. I got to pay the bills. I have 2 sponsors this week. I'm going to share them right now. I'm going to be back with what Blake Lively said in this epic crash out, coming back in 120 seconds. This time of year always makes me rethink what's in my closet. Out with the old, in with the new. I'm on the hunt for pieces that are well made and easy to wear all the time. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like their insanely soft, flow-knit activewear fabric. Their men's linen pants and shirts are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable, basically the perfect layer for spring. The pants strike the right balance between laid back and refined, so you look put together without trying too hard. I just picked up Quince's 100% European linen drawstring beach shorts at an unbelievable price. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/rushhour for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/rushhour for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/rushhour. If you felt stuck trying to lose weight, you're not alone. Weight Loss by Hers now offers access to the FDA-approved Wegovy pill at its lowest price ever and the FDA-approved Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hers, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. Plus, Wegovy is the first and only GLP-1 available in a pill, so there are no needles needed. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/rushhour to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/rushhour, forhers.com/rushhour. Based on advertised cash price for 30-day supply of medication only. Membership required, fee not included and billed separately. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information and restrictions, visit forhers.com. Here it is. Blake Lively said, "I'm grateful for the court's ruling, which allows the heart of my case to be presented to a jury next month, and for the ability to finally tell my story in full at trial, for my own sake, but also for those who don't have the same opportunity to, many of whom I have known and loved deeply in my life, and the countless I'll never know." And again, no one else is sticking up for her, right? No one else, like she is just alone in this. Where's Jenny Slate? Where's Isabel? Where's Taylor Swift? No one wants anything to do with this. The last thing I wanted in my life was a lawsuit. Well, we know that. We know that. She didn't want this thing to be public. She wanted to do all of this behind the scenes twisting of the knife to get rights to the film or the edit or whatever the hell she actually wanted to come from this. She didn't want this to be public. When it went public, she doubled down. How's that going? She said, "I brought this case because of the pervasive retaliation I faced and continue to for privately and professionally asking for a safe work environment for myself and others." My response to that is, I don't think she understands how the internet works. She thinks that they retaliate against her. My belief is that the internet exposed her for the shittiness she was in interviews, the petulant sort of like snobbiness that they saw from her when, and it came in and it probably felt like retaliation to Blake, but it's also the result of her coming out of the woodwork to do press and kind of not be good vibes to a lot of people. I hope the court's decision shows others that, and as unfathomably painful as it is, you can speak up. Don't be distracted by the digital soap opera. The constant packaging of this lawsuit as a celebrity drama is not only irresponsible, but it is by design to keep you from seeing yourself in my story. The physical pain from digital violence is very real. Now, again, I wasn't subpoenaed, so I don't know if she's talking about channels like mine, but I would take offense to that because it's like, look, I can't speak for commenters. I can't speak for other people, but all I can do is try to be the best, I can judge the case as best as I can based on the information that I have. That's how we live life, right? Making the best decisions we can based on the information we have. That's all I can do. And the information I have is that she used her bandwidth, her power, her equity, with her agency, with her star power, with her husband and her dragon, Taylor Swift, is that she used all of that to commandeer a first-time director, into giving her full control of the film. She's claiming it is abuse, and it's everywhere, not just in the news, but in your communities and schools. If you are looking, my claims won't be the first or last time you'll see examples of the extreme dangers of retaliation and digital warfare. And it often won't be directed at celebrities or those who may able to speak up. Typo. It affects us all. Across the political spectrum. Pay attention to all the ways we can be manipulated online. Digital manipulation has been boasted as untraceable. If you have kids on phones, they are some of the most vulnerable. Protect them. Have conversations with them. I agree with Blake Lively on this paragraph that there is digital manipulation. I've spoken out against astroturfing, which is fake grassroots efforts. We see it in elections. We see it in insurance lobbies, people that want to make you think or feel a certain way. We see that absolutely play out. What we don't see is evidence that Blake Lively has where she's actually the victim of harassment. So you can't just attach yourself to a pervasive issue without providing the receipts that you're a part of that issue, right? Does that make sense? Studies estimated that between 16 and 58, that's a big variable, between 16 and 58% of women have experienced online abuse or stalking, with 97% of gender-based violence service providers reporting technology facilitated abuse in their cases. So, and again, none of which she uses her platform to combat except when she feels like it affected her. So much critical work has already been done to expose systems, tactics, and players who harm. The work to create more safety is in part at trial, but it will also continue far after this trial is over. This is the work I'm most proud of. I couldn't begin to stand up if not for the countless who've gone before me and the masses who are still around us all, creating laws, social change, sparking conversations, rallying, working privately and publicly, risking and sometimes losing everything for the safety of others in all spaces. Some whose names we know, most we don't. Thank you, all of you. I will never stop doing my part in fighting to expose the system and people who seek to harm, shame, silence, and retaliate against victims. I know it's a privilege to be able to stand up. I will not waste it. Dragon emoji. Your support keeps me going. I don't know what support she's talking about, but it's not from the people whose comments I read online. And so someone said this interesting. Justin said nothing when his case was dismissed and hasn't said anything now. He's also kept his comments open, and he hasn't whined and kicked his feet when having to go in for deposition or turn over evidence. He behaved like a victim and an adult while she's behaved like a bully. I admire Justin's resilience and self-control to let the lawyers do their job. And that's what I think people are saying here as far as PR goes is this is like peak narcissism to have to control the story like this. And the thing hasn't even gone to trial yet. I don't know how she thinks this looks good for her, but she does have a massive, massive following, 40 plus million on Instagram. She's got a massive following. And if most people aren't following the story closely and just read her initial article, they do see her as the victim. Some folks have sort of responded to the comment she's made here with full context to the quotes. Blake's quote, Baldoni himself made statements suggesting he understood Lively made her complaints in good faith. The Wayfair parties have suggested that Lively used her experience on set as a cudgel for control over the film. He stated she continued to hold a threat over our heads, and every time we try and hold a line, she uses that threat either directly or indirectly to get us to fold. Baldoni stated the protections were sent in an effort to gain power over me personally in the studio. She cherry-picked the good faith line, but left out the sentences directly below it where the court acknowledges the defense's argument that she was weaponizing the sexual harassment complaints. Blake said a jury could find that the Wayfair parties waited to exact their retaliation at an opportune time. To be sure, a jury could also find that something other than retaliation explains the actions of the Wayfair parties. As they argued, they had a legitimate interest in protecting their reputations and the reception of their film against negative press, and would have taken steps to do so regardless of Lively's protected activity. So you understand the judge is doing what judges do, which is try to see all sides of the story and say, she could make this claim, but then they could also make this claim. So in essence, that's not a victory for Lively. It's like, let's let that part play out. Let's let the jury decide which side they're going to agree on. If I had to stake my reputation to it at this point, I don't see the jury siding with Blake Lively on any of her remaining claims. But we'll have to see how it goes. I'll change my opinion based on experts and, how the trial seems to be going, because you can make all the predictions you want, but it really comes down to like what is said in that courtroom when it goes to trial and what the jury gets to hear. Blake said Lively has identified evidence that, if credited, could support an inference that the Wayfair parties took adverse employment action. To be sure, much of what Lively complains about is not actionable. The Wayfair parties were entitled to engage public relations and crisis management specialists to protect their reputations. The Wayfair parties were also entitled to prepare responses to the protections letter and the accusations that it implied. That included the right to assert that the claims against them were untrue or misconstrued and that Lively could not be credited. Lively has cited no support for the proposition that a person publicly accused of serious misconduct cannot use proxies, both disclosed and undisclosed, to defend on herself. So they go on and on. I mean, we could do this for days here. And let's do that. Blake said Lively has come forward with affirmative evidence supporting her claim. A plaintiff cannot carry her burden at trial simply by calling into question the credibility of witnesses who have testified against her. Same page. The court was reminding everyone that surviving summary judgment is a low bar. Getting past more than a scintilla of evidence doesn't mean you win at trial. So again, more quotes that Blake Lively said out of context. We'll get to some of those. Sources say, very quickly we'll share. Sources say brand specialist Kaylee Cornelius spoke with Page Six after a judge tossed the actress's harassment, defamation, and conspiracy claims and said it does look like a challenging path lies ahead for Blake Lively. There's a real risk she could start to feel pushed out of the industry and struggle to secure major roles or brand deals going forward. Yeah, I mean, this is horrible for Blake Lively. Horrible. I mean, it was already horrible for Justin Baldoni, because who's going to want to work with him even if the claims are false? I mean, we've literally seen this play out with other people, again, and I know people don't always like bringing up the Trevor Bauer case, the MLB pitcher, but there is a defamation suit happening right now with the lady who accused him of crazy things. The lady has admitted that those things did not happen, and still Trevor Bauer, I think former Cy Young Award winner, is playing in independent baseball leagues, cannot play in the major leagues. He's been blackballed from the major leagues, even though it's come out that the lady who made accusations against him faked them. Do you understand? And again, he's not a perfect victim. He's a guy who was engaging in kinky sex and other things and banging people he meets online and things like that, but it's seemingly all consensual. But because of that, even Baldoni, if he wins all of this, he's not going to work again unless he's producing the content. Nobody is going to hire him for their movies when there's some other Joe Schmo who hasn't been accused or even exonerated of things. It's a terrible world, but that's the world we live in, which is you can exonerate yourself and still not work again. Now, as far as Blake Lively goes, she's going to be seen as the girl who cried wolf because her harassment claims couldn't even make it to trial. Here's what, and this is posted by Ashley Brown at Eve. We'll have to get her back on the show. She does a great job of sharing her thoughts and opinions. But here is what Blake's attorney said in January versus what Blake's attorney is saying now with regards to what the court case is all about.
A private text to friends like Taylor Swift laid out in public. I mean, that's not comfortable for anyone.
Blake has worked very hard to protect her friends, the acquaintances she had along the way. This case is not about those individuals. This case is about her performing her job in the workplace and being subject to sexual harassment.
All right, so back in January, her lawyer said this case is about being subjected to harassment. Now,
that's it. That's what this case is about.
Does her client want this to go to trial, or is she willing to look at settlement options?
Blake Lively wants this to go to trial. She really is in a position where she's got mountains of strong evidence. She feels very good about her claims.
And what's tough, and I'm not here to knock on Blake's attorney here, but she doesn't even sound believable with what she's saying. You can kind of hear it in the timbre of her voice. Maybe she's nervous, but she doesn't speak as confidently about Blake Lively as Brian Friedman speaks about Justin Baldoni.
And she wants to send a message for all women that if you are wronged and harmed in the workplace, you can stand up for yourself. You can say that this is not right and should not continue.
How does Blake feel about having all of her private texts to friends like Taylor?
All right, and then here's what she said on April 2nd. This case has always been and will remain focused on the devastating retaliation. So again, you can just see the contrast there of the case is about harassment. Well, now that part lost, the case is about retaliation. It's like retaliating against what? This is a big question. So here's what we have from Blake Lively that she has said since the last set of stories. So we had all those stories we already shared, plus this. Lively has come forward with affirmative evidence supporting her claims. With respect to the Wayfair parties following through on their intent to spread negative content about her, with respect to Wallace's technological capabilities in doing so. There's some direct evidence that the plan to destroy Lively in her career was put into action. A person in her position could have understood the workplace at times reflects a gendered and sexualized view of women and disregarding for their privacy, sufficient to make it reasonable to complain about a hostile work environment based on sex and gender. And again, these are all taken with cherry-picked without the judge's other nuanced response to saying why Wayfair has an argument to be made. Viewed in the light most favorable to Lively, there's also sufficient evidence that it was reasonable for her to believe that the Wayfair parties harassed her by creating a hostile work environment. Given the nature of the response, a jury could find that the Wayfair parties were motivated not just by fear of what would be disclosed, but by the protected actions Lively had taken in the past. Lively has also submitted expert reports that tend to support her allegations that there was an online campaign to manipulate public opinion in discussion against her. A jury could find that the Wayfair parties waited to exact their retaliation at an opportune time. There's a lot here. 4 more. Lively has identified evidence that, if credited, could support an inference that the Wayfair parties took adverse employment action against her, at least in part because of her protected activity. The Wayfair parties have not specifically contested Lively's subjective belief that she was discriminated against. There is enough evidence to bring the issue of Lively's protected activity before a jury. Finally, a jury could also find that the Wayfair parties understood that Lively thought they had behaved in a discriminatory manner. And again, that's what it comes down to is, I think Baldoni and the Wayfair parties, I think they didn't know what they were dealing with early on with Blake Lively. So they were trying to deal with her demands, right? They were trying to, deal with having a star on the set, someone who is an A-list talent, and doing whatever they had to do to get her happy. If that meant having her co-write scenes and take part in wardrobe and do all of these things, they were trying to give her that participation because they know, like any set out there, that if you're going to get someone who's kind of got this bloviated sort of sense of self-worth, that they're going to come with the baggage that exists from being a star in the industry for so long. Right? Now, there are plenty of stars in the industry that are super blue collar. They're one with the crew. They're talking shit at Crafty, having a cigarette with the sound guy. That exists too. But there's also the Blake Lively type. The type that feels like their shit just doesn't stink. It's all florals and roses, baby. Right? That type exists as well. And Baldoni and his crew, trying to spend years to do whatever they could to make this movie, bent. They didn't break, but they bent to Blake Lively's demands to the extent that they were willing to sign whatever she wanted them to sign in order to get her back on set. Then, later on, when she and Ryan Reynolds had developed an apology where they would have to admit to doing all of these things, they said, you know what? It's starting to feel like you're trying to extort us to get power over this film, to get power over the sequel, and everything else. And they were like, you know what? I don't feel like we're going to do that. And that is what led to this reactive New York Times article, and all of the other nefarious activity, the bending of the legal system in order to get Blake Lively to hit them where it hurts, which is public accusations. That's how I see it. I think I'm being pretty fair. Read some of your comments. I think most of you guys agree. There'll be people out there that disagree, that continue to say, no, Blake lost on a technicality. This all happened. But it's like, what world do we live in if we can't trust the legal system to play out? Like, look, you want to appeal certain things, fine. Justin Baldoni is going to appeal certain decisions about, I think it was the judge had just ruled that there is enough information for his defamation case against Stephanie Jones. There is so much going on that this is going to continue to be fought out for years. I wish it would all just be wrapped up in a weekend, but we're here to kind of continue to cover this because it speaks to a greater sort of psychological issue, I would say, in our world, which does involve digital manipulation. It does involve the internet sleuthing and getting invested in court cases to find out who's innocent and who's guilty. And when it comes to like forensic evidence in crime scenes, how many people were arrested decades ago for crimes they didn't commit because they didn't have the evidence to prove their innocence? What we're seeing play out now is a man, and gender doesn't even matter here, right? But in this case, a man being accused of crimes, having an internet willing to dig into it, and having the billionaire, which is really important, because if he didn't have the billionaire, he'd be broke by now, right? He would absolutely be broke, and he wouldn't be able to fight this case. But by having the billionaire, he's able to finance the case to continue to pursue his truth. Blake sees that as him being, Goliath. He sees it as she's Goliath. I think my personal opinion is that Blake Lively was the Goliath, Baldoni was David, and he came out here and he wasn't going to be living in fear of Goliath. And David, along with all of the internet, has showed the true power in crowdsourcing and the true power in kind of pushing through what PR can do to somebody, right? So just to wrap up, I know this is complicated here, but she's accusing him of retaliation, but she's the one who used mainstream media, New York Times, a protected complaint in California, the sham subpoena. She's the one who used Khaleesi's dragons to flex, to try to bend him to her demands. She's the Goliath. He is slaying her metaphorically with response to 10 of the 13 claims being thrown out. That's the opinion I have right now. And I think that's why people are on his side, not because they don't want to believe a woman, but because they're fighting for the underdog here, who was dead on arrival after that New York Times article, and yet he still has a beating heart, and yet he's the one privately letting this thing play out, and she's the one publicly protesting. Interesting stuff. So much to get into this coming week. We'll be here to break it all down. Going to interview one of my favorite lawyer friends who's covering this story tomorrow. We'll have that for you. So hit the like button, subscribe. If you want to put bread in the tip jar, you can go to patreon.com/Dave Neal. Donate to the private community where we continue to talk about this in the chat forums and all of that. Otherwise, have a good, happy Easter. Go have some Cadbury eggs for me, and we'll see you later. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.